I want to welcome everyone to the Minchat Chinuch Shir that takes place every Thursday night at Congregation Schwartz, 1575 Coney Island Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. And Kaidem Kol Minchat Taida, I want to, for Minchat Chinuch, Lol Minchat Taida, I want to thank the very worthy organization, TorahAnytime.com, for sending a cameraman, uploading the shir, and making it accessible to whoever cannot come in person. You should be able to be mefitz the thousands of shiurim that you have already uploaded. So tonight is Mitzvah Lag Baimer. We sailed the 33rd day of Sfira last night. So that, in conjunction with the fact that this week is Pashas Omer, in which the Mitzvah Sfira Omer appears. So I've decided to do Mitzvah Shinvav. Mitzvah Shinvav is the Mitzvah of Sfira Omer. Just have to get the place here. Okay. So I'll just read a little bit of the Chinuch. The beginning of the handout is a little chasser. I only had room to copy 2 pages. Zok Sefer Chinuch Mitzvah Sfira Omer Lisper Tisha V'Arbaim Yom Miyom Havas HaOmer, to count off 49 days from the day that the Karban HaOmer is brought in the Beis HaMikdash. Shu Yom Shisha Asa B'Nisan, that's the 16th day of the month of Nisan. Shenama Usvat L'Mochem Machas HaShabbos, you should count from the day after the Shabbos. Shabbos in this context does not mean Shabbos Bereshis. That's what the Tzdukim used to say. It means the first day of Pesach. Chazal Darshan prove how that's what it means in this context. So it means the day after the first day of Pesach. We would call the second day of Pesach, also known as Nisan 16. Miyayim Haviyachim Esaymer HaTanufa. Okay, from the day that you bring the Omer HaTanufa, the Omer that was waived before we were makriv. So I want to read some basic halachas from the Rambam about this mitzvah of Sfira Omer. The Rambam is in Hilchos Tmidim Misafin, Perek Zayin, halachas Chaf Beis through Chaf Hey. Mitzvah Seilus B'Sheva Shabbos Tmimos, to count off 7 complete weeks. Miyayim Havas HaOmer, from the day that the Omer is brought, Shenemar Svatcha Machas HaShabbos, Sheva Shabbos. Should count from the day after the Shabbos, the holiday, the first day of Pesach, 7 weeks. U'mitzvah limnais hayamim imashuas. There's a mitzvah to count the days and the weeks. Right? It says on the one hand, the pasuk says, Sheva Shabbos is Tmimas Tiyana. Shabbos is a synonym in Lashon Kodesh for a week. It doesn't just mean the Yom HaShabbos. Right? It means a week. And it also says Tisbru Chamishim Yom. You have to count off 50 days. Right? So there's a mitzvah to count the days, and there's a mitzvah to count the weeks, and that's familiar to us in the nusach of our Sfira Omer. Starting from the 7th day of the Omer, we say Hayom Shiva Yomim Shem Shavua Echad L'Omer. And that's how we go through the whole thing. If it'll be the 43rd day of the Omer, we'll say Hayom Shlosh V'Arbaim Yom Shem Shisha Shavuos V'Yom Echad L'Omer. You count the days, you count the weeks, you count the way the days break down into weeks and days. You should count from the beginning of the day, because that's a kiyum of Tmimus. That's how you have the days being complete, is if you count as early as you possibly can. That's why you start counting from the evening. In other words, even though the Omer in the Beis HaMikdash wasn't brought until the morning of Shishas ben Nisan, but since the mitzvah is Miyayim Haviyachim Esaymer HaTanufa, and the Yom starts, the Leila Yimah, the Yom starts the night before, so that's where we start counting already at night. Halacha Chav Gimel. Shachach v'lo mana b'layla, mana b'yom. If you did not count at night, okay, so Tamimus is something we should strive for, but it's not an absolute must. If you don't have Tamimus, if you didn't count at night, mana b'yom. Ve'ena mina ela me'umad, and you're supposed to count while you're standing. V'mana miyushav yatsa. Here's another thing that you have l'chatchila and b'diavad. L'chatchila should count Sfiras Omer standing, but if you counted while you were sitting, you don't have to repeat it. V'yatsa b'diavad you yatsa. Mitzvah zu al kol ish miYisrael v'chol makom v'chol zman. This mitzvah applies on each individual Jew. Okay, you have to be medayik in the lashon around here. We're going to go through some Minchas Chinuch where he breaks down these various psakim, piskei halach of the Rambam. It's a mitzvah on each and every Jew. Uv'chol makom, everywhere. It's not mitzvah to lis baretz. It doesn't matter if it's Eretz or chutz la'aretz. Uv'chol zman, all times. Doesn't matter if there is a Beis HaMikdash, there are karbanos, there is a carbon Omer, or if there's no carbon Omer. V'nashim v'avadim peturim mimenu. Women and avadim are part of because mitzvah asayisha zman grama.
The Rambam's the rice sphere.
Oh, so let's hold on. It certainly would seem that way. We're going to see inside the Minchas Chinuch in a minute. V'tzarich levarach b'chol laila. Each and every night you have to make a bracha. Baruch ta Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kitshanu v'tzayis v'tzvanu al Sfiras Omer kayim sheyispar. Like every other mitzvah, it has to be over l'asiyasa before you perform the mitzvah. That's when you make the bracha, not after the performance of the mitzvah. So before we count, we make a bracha. Mana v'lei birach yatzav and achayzim avarach. Again, l'chatchila is in b'diavad. L'chatchila should make a bracha, but algemein psak, nothing unusual here. Bracha is ena ma'akves as a mitzvah, and if you do perform the mitzvah, you did it out of sequence. You did the mitzvah, now I'll make a bracha. Doesn't work that way. And bracha is ena ma'akves as a mitzvah, so the mitzvah you were yaitza, and now you don't make the bracha anymore. Okay. Some basic halachas in the Rambam all seems very familiar to us, but we're going to see that some of these things are actually controversial in the Rishonim. Okay, first thing, let's take a look at Eis Beis. Vayin shas menachas samachem beis u'sfart lochem shetzvir l'chol echad ve'echad. Yeah, we darshan the word lochem. Yeah. It's a little bit different than by the mitzvah of Arba Minim, where it says L'kachtam Lachem B'yam Harisha and Pri Hatzadar, that we said Mishal Lachem, that a gezula or a she'ula is possible for a lulav. Here, we're talking about a verbalization. We're not talking about a chayfetz that can be owned. So here we darshan the word Lachem a little bit differently. Shtei Sfir L'chol Echad Ve'echad. V'ayin tais the Ramas Svartim. Yeah, B'yovel Ksiv. There's a tais over there. In Menachas Samachem Beis, the Taisus that says as follows: B'yovel Ksiv v'safar ta. Okay, you're supposed to count Sheva Shabsei Shanim. Over there, we're not talking about days. We're talking about Shemitah cycles, right? 7 Shabsei Shanim. Shabsei in days is what we call a week. Shabsei in Shanim is a complete 7-year Shemitah cycle, right? But the lashon over there is v'safar ta, singular. So there we say it's talking to Klal Yisrael, it's talking about the duly represented, the duly, I shouldn't say elected, the legitimate representatives of Klal Yisrael. Heises the Bezdin. Sham ha-mitzvah le-Bezdin. That's a mitzvah on Bezdin. It's not a mitzvah on each individual Jew to count the years, the days of Shemitah. It's talking about the Bezdin. Okay, Mayor, there's a handout to follow along over there. Okay, we are in Eis Beis on page Tov Samach Zion. Did I put it right side up?
Yes.
Okay, so you see where it's underlined in the right hand column, yes. Right about there, a few lines in. Yeah. By the way, are you on the email list or not? You are already. Okay. Good. What happened to my pen here? Let me just see if you're in here. No. It's okay. I'll just have it here and it's one man. Real quick. Okay. So, v'yavur l'kamon b'yovel k'su safarta sham mitzvah l'bezin. The mitzvah is on the bezin. V'yavur l'kamon bez Hashem is baruch m'kaimai. Over there, I'll explain what it means. It's a mitzvah on the bezin when we get to mitzvah shin lamed. V'ayim b'gemara sham. Take a look at the Gemara. Now, here's an interesting machlokes in the Paiskim. Okay, we know that by a lot of verbal things, there's such a thing called one person being mitzi another person. And a halacha concept called shemeh ka'ina. Right? One person learns Kriyas HaTorah or the Megillah, and we're all yaitza. Ma'asim b'chol yom, that Reuven makes a bracha for Shimon. Shimon answers amen, and he's yaitza with the bracha. Sometimes you yaitza with a bracha by means of somebody else making it for you, and sometimes you yaitza a mitzvah by somebody else doing it for you. So when it says u'sfartem lochem, that the sphere is on bezin, it's on kol echad ve'echad, right? Does that mean we have here an exception to the rule of Shemei Kaina? Does that mean that if Reuven says Hayom Yom Echad Loimer, and Shimon is listening to him, and Shimon wants him to be mitzi him, to do the mitzvah on his behalf, is that good or no good? What do you think? What do you say?
No.
What? It's no good?
No.
Why not? Why is it any different than being yaitza Kriyas HaTorah with somebody lining for you? Is the mitzvah to listen or is the mitzvah to read?
Kriyas HaTorah is mitzvah to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about Mikra Megillah?
Megillah also, it's to listen.
We don't make the nusach of the bracha is not l'shmaya ha-Megillah. It's al kriyas Megillah. It's a kriya. It's a din in kriya, I think.
Yeah, but the thing that Omer is a matter of you saying it. And
How do you know? Mehechataisa. I just brought you a tentative raya from Mikra Megillah that the mitzvah is to read, not to listen. But by listening to somebody else read, it's as if I read myself.
is that the
So why can't counting be the same thing? The mitzvah is to count. Somebody else counts on my behalf, and I'm listening to him count, and I want him to count on my behalf. So it's good enough.
To take it one step further, how
Yeah.
can that now also mean that if someone makes a bracha over an orange,
Yes?
then why? Then in that case, I want you to save him out for my sake, and I'll have.
And that's perfectly legal. You can do that. Whenever you hear a kiddush and one person says the Bar Pri Geffen and everyone else drinks the wine, that's exactly what happened. That is the normative din. Normative din in brachas. Brachas a little bit different. They're a little bit easier to hear. It's not the mitzvah itself. It's the bracha for the mitzvah. Okay? This is the mitzvah itself. Okay, so let's see what he says over here. He brings an interesting Magen Avram. Magen Avram Sham Sivkat Beis Daita Naita. Then he yaitza b'sfiras chaverei afal pisha shama. If Reuven counts for Shimon, and Shimon is listening intently with kavana, that Reuven should be mitzi him, no good. V'loy damya lekiddush ukadaymish yaitza b'shmiras chaverei. It's not damya to kiddush. Yeah, kiddush besides the brachas that make up the kiddush is a mitzvah say. Yeah, Zachreyu alayin. It's mitzvah say minatayra to make kiddush, right? Mm-hmm. So if Reuven is mitzi Shimon and Reuven's whole family with kiddush, yeah. So you see, there's such a thing that with verbal mitzvahs, with the din of Shemei Ka'ina, A can be mitzi B. This is different. This is a kasef. There's the pasuk that says Schwartz and the lashon of the Gemara is sheyeh kol echad ve'echad. So that's it. Sheyeh kol echad. This is an exception to the rule. The gzeres hakasavu the kol echad mechuyev lispel atzmei. V'ayin sham shemevi b'shem best Yosef sheyotzim shemei chaveret. So it's a machlokes. The Magen Avram holds you're not yotzim. The Beis Yosef holds you are. V'ayin sham shenich b'tzarachin din zeh. V'sefer chag yankiv sham sivgat dalad. Daite gamken then yotzim b'shmiras chaveret. He's mitzaded more like the Magen Avram, not like the Beis Yosef. Reuven cannot be mighty Shimon. Or pri chadash sham sivgat pilpul. V'daite the b'diavad yotzim sham mechaveret. Okay, pri chadash goes with the Beis Yosef after a long pilpul. Maybe b'shem hasifri. See, here's the thing. How do you understand the gzeres hakasav? Is the gzeres hakasav proactive or reactive, for want of a better word? Is the gzeres hakasav usvartem lochem imachos hashabbos? You should count for yourself. Shei kol echad v'echad mina. Is it saying shei kol echad v'echad mina? Except no substitute. Everyone has to count for themselves. Yeah. Or is it just contrasting to what the Torah said by Yovel? Is it just to tell me it's not a din on Bezdin? Shei kol echad v'echad means don't think it's just like Yovel, that it's only a chiyuv on the Bezdin to do the counting. Here it's a chiyuv on every individual. But with the Gedarim, how individual Jews are yaitza mitzvahs. People could be yaitza mitzvahs by means of other people doing it for them and listening. So that's really what it turns on. a chakira in how to understand the drasha of the Gemara. The Gemara said shei kol echad v'echad. Proactive, dafka kol echad v'echad, or reactive to what it said by Yovel, that if the safar ta, in the singular, that it's a din on bezdin. So here, just telling you it's not a din on bezdin. Yeah? Well, maybe B'Shem is free. The ikar mashazir ta yisril l'chol echad v'echad, lahaitzi, is to take out of your mind, sheyasvara, the rak l'bezdin ha-mitzvah k'ma b'Yovel. That it's only a din on bezdin like Yovel is. Okay, fine. Now he's taking up a new thing. And I'm going to propose that perhaps these two ideas are connected. Okay. We all know, I think we all know, we should have heard by now, okay, that even though, a lot of the Sarim Hamaskimim, the Sari Atayra, Rashach, and others, when they endorsed the beginning of the translation of Shas project many years ago, so a lot of them hedged. A lot of them were very happy about it, and they thought it's this tremendous breakthrough, and it's going to take the Talmud that was a closed book and it opened up for masses of people, and it was a visionary project, and a lot of that came true. But there were two worries. There were the worries that people who should not be using it would turn to it as a crutch, and the other worry was that Nachal L'Maisa, after all is said and done, okay, you have to master the languages. You have to master Lashon HaKodesh to be able to learn Mikra in the original, and you have to master Lashon Aramish. You have to master Lashon of Chazal to be able to learn the texts in the original. And the fear was, if the translations are so good and everything's so lucid and everything's so understandable, people are going to become poor in skills. They'll never learn how to learn. Never learn the language, I should say. Okay? So, here's the issue. Lashon Kodesh is a heilig gezach. Lashon Kodesh, it's so called. It's a holy tongue. It's the holy tongue. Right? He elevated us up above all other tongues, all other languages. And there's a parak in Shas called Eil Nemar B'Chalosh. Some things could be said in other languages. Okay, but we walk around with the basic idea. Of course, the lechatchila, the hidden mitzvah, the pitchivkas, the probably certain things that are ma'akev, they must be said in Lashon Kodesh. If they're not said in Lashon Kodesh, it doesn't count. Okay. On the other hand, we are also, I think by now, many of us aware that there are certain things that if you don't understand Lashon Kodesh, you better dare not say it in Lashon Kodesh. Two striking examples that come to mind immediately, you'll tell me if you know of any others, is Hataras Nadarim, on Erev Rosh Hashanah. It's brought in all the Paiskim, and most good sitters with a good instruction. It says in the front that if you don't understand Lashon Kodesh, there's not davening, there's a legal declaration, and it's meaningless if you don't understand what you're saying. All right? So Lashon Kodesh is very holy, but it's not legal. It's not legally binding, so to speak. Similarly, right? Similarly called Chamira, which is in Aramaic, it's brought in all the Paiskim, that when you're Mavatul Chametz, when you nullify your Chametz, it's a Maisa Kinya, it's a legal act of renouncing ownership. Yeah, it's a legal activity that you're undertaking to avoid an Avera. If you're not going to be Mavatul Chametz, it could be you'll be Nichshel and Bal Yirah, Bal Yamatzah. Right? But Lamaisa, it's a way of absolving ownership, and you can't absolve ownership if you don't know what you're talking about. If you're just saying an incantation, so to speak. Right? So here's the question. What about Sfiras Omer? Yeah? Sfiras Omer, if I don't understand Hebrew, I don't know what these Hebrew words mean. Achad, Shtayim, Shalosh, I don't know what these words mean. Yeah? Should I say it in English or should I say it in Hebrew? What do you think before we see what the Paiskim say? What do you think?
English.
You should say it in English. Right.
If you don't understand what you're saying, then you're not counting, right?
I would think so. That would be the pashtus, right?
But the thing is, when it comes to Count the Omer, if you didn't say anything, just simply said, today is the hypothetically 33rd day,
Yes.
and that tonight was going to be the 33rd.
Then you don't know how to count. Then you've got a more serious problem than being Hebrew challenged. Then you're math challenged also. If yesterday was 33 and tonight's also 33, then you don't know how to count.
Well, you said today's 33, like, oh, okay, actually tonight's my 30. But since you said 33, you can't say Count the Omer with a bracha, I was taught. Because you already said the number. Doesn't matter if you said it the long version, was all like,
right.
Well, you just said Today's 33.
No. I'm not arguing the ability to be Yaitse Sfiras Aimer in English.
Okay.
What I want to know is if you don't understand Hebrew,
Ah.
can you be Yaitse in Hebrew? So these are the pashas. If the mitzvah is to count, and I don't know what I'm counting, so it doesn't count, so to speak. It can't be legal. All right, let's see. There's a machlekes over here in the Paiskim also. Vayn Magen Avram Sham. The Svira hu b'chol lashon. V'lav dafke b'lashon HaKodesh. Svira can be said in every lashon. Lav dafke in lashon Kodesh. But even the Magen Avram doesn't seem to say that you can't say it in lashon Kodesh, or that understanding of lashon Kodesh is a requirement. He says you could say it in any language. V'meina mevin lashon HaKodesh v'safel lo yatsa. I'm sorry, I didn't finish the sentence. V'meina mevin lashon HaKodesh v'safel lo yatsa. Okay, now you see there's a little bays. Look at this footnote here. Hayayvitz, that's from Yankov Emden. See the bays on the bottom under the main text? Hayayvitz b'shal s'tshuvas chelakav some kuflamates. Chaylak al Magen Avram. V'sfila diyatsa av she'ena mevin lashon HaKodesh. The Yankov Emden Paskins, if I say it in Hebrew, doesn't matter if I know what I'm saying. If somebody just points to me in the siddur, here's the script, read it. This is the one you're supposed to say tonight. Okay? I have no idea where we're holding. Yeah? Let's say I'm an illiterate person who's never even read a Haggadah fully in Hebrew my full name. I guess that somebody said it the first night. And for all I know, that they're saying, I know there's a mitzvah Sfiras Aimer, but I don't know what I'm saying right now. If I say Hayayim Yam Echad B'Aimer, I'm Yaitse. As I state Rabbi Yankov Hamdan. Okay. So here's, I just want to read a room an Indian a little bit over here. Okay. If I remember correctly, in Hilchos Shabbos, yeah. So the minimum shear for the malacha of ksiva, to be machal Shabbos to rise from malacha of ksiva, is you have to be kaisef shtei isis. You have to write 2 letters, right? Because the smallest intelligible word is composed of 2 letters, right? No, actually, I said a b'chsva over there. I'm wrong. The reason is because all the malachas are learned out malachas HaMishkan, and malachas HaMishkan, the reason for ksiva malachas HaMishkan was to match up the krushim, okay? To know which, you ever take apart a sukkah, and then you didn't label which wall went where or which beam went where, and then the next year you try to put together your jigsaw puzzle, and there was a little warping of the wood, and you're in big trouble, right? So most people today, when they put together their sukkahs, unless it is really easy snap lock prefab sukkahs, most people will write northeast corner, or they number them, number 1, number 2. Okay, that's what they did in the Mishkan. The Mishkan, now, in the Mishkan you could say it was unnecessary to do, because l'maisa over there you had uniform parts. Every single keresh was the same dimensions. Every one of the beams that formed the walls of the Mishkan were the same dimensions. Nevertheless, they numbered them. Okay? So, okay, this is keresh number 1. It goes adjacent to keresh number 2. So they wrote an aleph on keresh 1, and they wrote a beis on the next keresh, right? If you don't have at least 2 krushim that you have to stick next to one another, so the writing of the isis would have been meaningless. If I only have an aleph on one, how do I know where the beis is? Okay, so whatever, that's the shear, that's the makar, it's the root of how I know that kaisava, fine. But the bottom line is that 2 letters can make up some rudimentary words. All right? So I think there's talk in the Rishonim. What about if I didn't write 2 isis in Lashon HaKodesh or in some other Lashon? Yeah? Let's say I wrote 1 character in hieroglyphics, in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, or in Chinese. Okay? I don't know if you know this about Oriental is a bad word, politically incorrect word. Asian languages, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, a lot of these languages, there's a tremendous emphasis in the school system on calligraphy and on penmanship, because a little nuance of a brushstroke, these are not simple alphabets. There are thousands and thousands of characters, and it's like decoding, and it's a combination of characters. It's the whole theory of language is different over there. And there could be 1 character on the page that's really a full word, or it's a full self-contained concept, or something like that. There's talk of with symbols. Yeah, if you draw a Magen Dovid on a page, yeah, if you draw a peace symbol on a page. Yeah. Is that painting or is that ksiva? What's the definition of ksiva? Is ksiva language? Okay. So I think there's right about this about numbers also. Right? If you're writing numbers and you're not writing letters, is it necessary to write two numbers, or can you be machal shabbos by just writing one number? Because a number is a self-contained concept. Yeah? You write the Arabic numeral 4, okay, it comes up in your mind, 4 items, or the 4th item, or something like that. It communicates a complete thought. Yeah? Okay. So this is what I'm clearing. I don't remember which Rishonim say what about the malachas on Shabbos and about these various ideas, hieroglyphics, numbers, and so on and so forth. But the point that I'm trying to make is, I can hear possibly a lamda shechilik between a mitzvah of kriya, which is to read, or a mitzvah of sefira, which is to count. Okay? Kriya, yeah, if I learn things phonetically, yeah, you have people who come into shul Nebuch who never learn Lashon Kodesh, yeah, and they get up with these transliterated Sidurim, Yizgadal, Yizgadal, Shmei Rabo. Right? They don't know what they're saying, but they can say it. I'm making a little bit of chayzik, but they have better interlinear, phonetic sounding codes today. You can read a script, so to speak. Yeah. So reading, to me, does not necessarily involve comprehension. You can read, and you can read something right, especially if it's a one-syllable simple word, right? And your understanding is beside the point. I mean, I would venture to say, yeah, that there are a lot of fine, even Talmidei Chacham and Balei Kriya, yeah, that when they have to read, some of the Haftarahs, they don't know the taich of every single word. We're going to make that a baseline requirement. Oh, you didn't understand the language. You weren't Yaitza Kriya, we weren't Yaitza Kriya by listening to you. I don't know the comprehension is necessary in a din of Kriya. But in counting, yeah, counting means I know what this number means. It's meaningless. I didn't count if I don't know the cheshbon. Right? If I don't know that yesterday was 33 and what tonight's going to be, so what is my number? What does my enunciating the words mean? Right? So that's where I could hear a big chiluk in both of these psakim of the Magen Avraham. Right? When he says that if you say in Lashon Kodesh, if you say 34, 35, 36, 38, whatever you said, right? Shleishim v'shtayim, shleishim v'echad, whatever you said it and you don't know what it means, right? Even if you said Lashon Kodesh is a beautiful language, but if you don't know what it means, the mitzvah is a count. You didn't count. I think it's very similar to Hataras Nadarim. It's a declaration. It's a legal declaration. If you don't understand what it means, then you didn't do it. Bittul chametz. Were you mevatel it or not? You can't say, "Oh, I said it with la kavana. I shuckled. I put on a gartel. I went to the mikveh before I said it." It's not a religious piety. It's a legal activity. If you don't know what you're saying, then you didn't do it, right? So I can see the same thing over here. And similarly, what he said before, that you're not yaitza with somebody else doing it for you, right? Maybe it's also totally in the same thing, because when we're talking about a numbering system, where the mitzvah is to count, right? That's not the same thing as enunciating words, right? Yeah, you have to do it verbally. You can't do it mentally. Svarta hocha means spirit b'peh. That's true. It does have to be verbal. I can't just mentally think whatever tonight's number is. I have to enunciate it. I'm not yaitza the mitzvah. But I can still hear that it's categorically different than the algemeine din that shemei ka'ina. Shemei ka'ina means, aina would mean I'm saying after you, right? Bereshis, bara, lakim, vayi, bimei, achashverish, right? But here, even if you say shemei ka'ina, let's say I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah? So you said tonight's the first day. Okay, you said the word echad. I'll say the word echad. It's as if I said the word echad. The point is not saying it. The point is counting it. Yeah, it has to be verbal. But that's not really the nakuda. The nakuda is to count it. Same way without comprehension, counting is not counting. Okay? Without counting, without my actually counting. Or whatever. I'm trying to say that there's a qualitative difference between being yaitza in a kriya, which is formed of letters and of words, than a sphira, which is formed of numerals and numbers. So theoretically, those are two different concepts. Okay. Fine. Take a look at Eis Daled now. I was going to talk about the Sfira B'Zmazeh the Rabban Derais. It's a little one. It's 3 lines. You can look at it yourself after the shir. Eis Daled. V'nashim v'avadim p'turim mitzvah zu. Women and avadim are parted from this mitzvah. The mitzvah seisha zman grama, because it's a positive time-based mitzvah. It's time. It's totally a mimachos haShabbos. It's only a mitzvah between Pesach and Shavuos. So however you want to define mitzvah seisha zman grama, this qualifies. Although I'm sure that's controversial too. I'm sure they're Rishonim. You look at Eis Daled in the footnote. There's a Ramban that says that Sfira Omer is not a mitzvah seisha zman grama. But at any rate, this is what the Sefer Chinuch paskins, the Rambam paskins, that Noshim and Avadim are potter. Nowadays, women made it a chayva upon themselves. It's a nayas to say, it's a big chiddush to say such a thing, that because they were makabel on themselves to do a certain mitzvah, so now it actually became binding on them. Now they have a din of a mitzvah. Okay. Let's skip ahead to Eis Vav, okay? Because I promised in the email we're going to do a very famous and interesting chakira here, and if I don't skip around, we're not going to get to it. Take a look now on Eis Vav. Now, here's the thing. I just read you a Rambam, and we know the common practice is that if I forgot at night to count, so I count by day. It's not tmimus, but it's not pshat that I totally missed the day, right? And then I can go on with the count the next night. Right? But what happens if I totally forgot? I forgot at night and I forgot by day. It's the 3rd day of the Omer. I forgot at night, I forgot by day. Now it's already Tzesek Achavim. Everyone in Shul is about to count Hayam Arba Yom V'Omer. It's the fourth night of the Omer. Can I go on or not? So the way that we're Mechanech Miyachedi, you can't. But even this is a Machlokes Rishonim. There's some Rishonim that hold you could. Yeah? And basically,
each night is a separate mitzvah.
B'pashtus. Okay, so the simple way to say the lumdus of the machlokes hapaiskim in this regard is: do we regard each individual night as its own thing? Then one thing has nothing to do with the other. So what if I missed a night or 5 nights or a week for that matter? Right? There's a new mitzvah to count this day. The count is still there. I may not have done the mitzvahs those other nights. Right? The other Rishonim seem to think, no, it's one big unified mitzvah, right? And that's why if you missed an entire day, an entire 24-hour period, one number is gone, finished. You can't do the mitzvah anymore. The Sfira of the Omer was Sheva Shabbosos and Chamishim Yom, and either way you want to cut it, either your weeks are missing or your days are missing, and that's not the mitzvah. Okay, we're going to read, learn a little bit weiter. Maybe we're going to tighten up or sharpen up, I should say, this lumdus. V'hinei, nir pashut l'shitas harishayim hasayvim, dim loy manam b'layla yispa b'yayim. I'm not actually sure why he stole these. To me, these sounds like 2 different shitas, but he's lumping them together. The harishayim to hold that if you missed at night, you should count by day. Oy, im dilei kol hayayim yispa achakach, t'lo hifsed mitzvah. Or, if you skipped an entire day, you could still count afterwards. It's not called that you lost out on the mitzvah. So it makes no difference if you forgot, you did it on purpose, you were in a mood, whatever, merid, whatever, you were amazed in being mevatel the mitzvah of Sfira that day. Or, if the reason that you didn't count was not because you forgot, not because you were ornery and rebellious, you didn't count because you're not mechuyev. For example, now a woman is not going to change her status. If she wasn't mechuyev on day 1 at Omer, she won't be mechuyev on day 49. But there are two other categories of people who are not mechuyev, who their status could change. A katan and an avid. Right? Anyone whose birthday falls somewhere during Sfira, and we're talking about their 13th birthday when they become bar mitzvah. So there you have a tzir of where you couldn't count the Omer for whatever days led up to your birthday because you weren't a bar mitzvah yet. You weren't mechuyev. In the case of an Eved, you couldn't count Sfira. When I say couldn't, I mean you couldn't on the level of normal adult Jewish males. I'm not saying you weren't allowed to. I'm saying you couldn't do it as a bar chiyuv because you weren't a bar chiyuv. Because an Eved is only mechuyev in the same mitzvahs as an Isha. An Isha is part of mitzvah seishas man grama. So is an Eved. So if an Eved counted at the beginning of Sfira, he was doing so, but not as a bar chiyuv. He was only doing so in the spirit of volunteerism, so to speak. Right? So, according to those shittas, you can skip a whole day and keep on counting. So certainly, a katan who has a bar mitzvah in the middle of Sfira, or an Eved who got liberated in the middle of Sfira, they could finish the count. That year, the year they got liberated, the year they became bar mitzvah. Not a problem. It'd still be chayiv to count. Which time do we have left? Probably have more time than I think because probably not going to be able to. Okay, let's go a little weiter in this shtickle.
Do they count with bracha?
What?
Do they count with bracha?
According to what he's saying now, they would count with a bracha. Yes, absolutely. If somebody who purposely skipped the night, can go on counting with a bracha, so why wouldn't a bar mitzvah boy who became an adult during Sfira be able to count with a bracha? He's saying it's a machlokes rishonim. I don't think we pass on this way. He's saying according to those rishonim that you could skip a full day by accident, or even he's saying even b'meisa would make no difference, and go on counting the rest of Sfira with a bracha. So why couldn't a katan or an Eved do the same thing? You see, you don't need. It's not what we call in English a zero-sum game. It's not an all or nothing proposition. If you don't have all the days, you make a bracha and you count whatever days you do have. Okay. Kizayna me'ashlama. It's not a din of hashlama. Shanam adim loy ha'yachayiv ein tzorach lahashlam. That if you weren't chayiv at the beginning, you're not chayiv to be mashlam. K'mayim v'zeh chagiga tesam al-alaf gabi chiga. Okay. Here's the thing. Let me read you outside a little bit. Ashlikul Gemara. Goes like this. There's a Mishnah. You know what? I'm going to read the whole Mishnah because Hayais, that last night was Lag Baimer and the Elul of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. And there's a very nice drusha for Reb Shimon in this Mishnah. I'll read the whole Mishnah. Mishalei Chog B'Yontav Harishon Shel Chag. Somebody who was not the verb Chog means brought his korban chagiga and Eilos Riyah. If he didn't do that on the first day of Sukkot, Chagig Eskala Regel. V'yantav Achron Shal Chag. He can still bring his Chagiga, the entire Yantav, and even the last day of the Chag. Over HaRegel V'lai Chag, if the Yantav finished and he did not bring his Chagiga, and the Chai B'Achrayas, B'Achriyusay. He's not Chai B'Achriyusay, means there's no makeup carbon anymore. That's what we call Over Zman and Batel Mitzvah. The Zman finished, and the mitzvah is nullified. Al Zan Nemar, this is what Shlomo Melech meant when he wrote in Kehelah, somebody who procrastinates and ends up not bringing his Chagiga or his Eilos Riyah. Mu'uvas layuchal liskain, v'chesar layuchal imanais. A crooked thing that cannot be made corrected anymore, cannot be repaired, and something that's missing that cannot be counted. Reb Shimon ben Menashe Omer, Eizem Me'uv v'shun yachal liskain. What is Shlomo Melech talking about? Not this. Zah bal erev v'aylu menu mamzer. This is talking about somebody, a particular kind of avarinik, a particular kind of avarian, somebody who was bayil and erva and got her pregnant, and he had a ben mamzer. So that's it. You can do tshuva from today till tomorrow. You can live another 50 Yom Kippurs. The mamzer son or daughter is not going to disappear. You made something crooked, and the crookedness will endure. If you thought that Shlomo Melech was talking about somebody who stole or somebody who pickpocketed, that's something that can be fixed. Not every Avera is unfixable, but certain Averas are unfixable. I think elsewhere in Chazal, it says if you murdered somebody, You can do the best tshuva in the world. It's not going to be Tchias HaMesim. The murder victim is dead. Right? Reb Shimon ben Yochai Omer, Enkar Movis, Elamisha Mesukin Betchila V'Nesaveis. You only call it crooked or corrupted somebody who was first straight and now got made crooked. What's this talking about? Talmud Chacham HaPayrish Min HaTorah. Talmud Chacham who goes off the derech, that's what Shlomo Melech is talking about. That's somebody who's incorrigible. Such a person who was already fixed to start with, and then he went off, Parish Min HaTorah, such a person will not be fixable again. Okay, that's the mission. So now, the Gemara says like this. There's a pasuk that teaches us that lechatchila, the Karban Chagiga and El Sriya should be brought the first day of Yontif. And there's another pasuk that teaches me, but if you didn't, you can still make it up the rest of Yontif. Imken Lama Navar Shiva, why does the Torah say Shiva l'tashlumin to tell me that there's makeup dates? Umenayishim loichag Yontif Risha Shalchag Shkoy V'hel Kol HaRegel V'Yontif V'Achron Talmud V'chai Shri T'chaygu I say Ibachai Shri Yochei Chayg V'hel Chaydish Kulei. I would think you could do it until the end of Tishrei. Outside the Yontif, you cannot bring the Chagiga. Umay tashlumin. What does it mean when we say that there's tashlumin? Rabbi Yechon tashlumin l'rishin. Yeah, the day to bring the Chagiga is the first day of Yontif. After that, everything else is a makeup date. Rabbi Shiyam tashlumin zelozeh. Each day of Yontif is a tashlumin. Whatever day you showed up to the base of Mikdash, when you saw, you came to see and be seen, that's when you're mechuyev in these karbanos, right? So Lu Yitzur, you weren't around the base of Mikdash on the first day, and you came on the second day. So that's your lechatchila day, so to speak. And then the third day is a makeup for the second day, not for the first day. Sounds like semantics. My benai. What's the difference between these two shitas? Omer abzerich chiga b'yam rishon and espasha b'yam sheni. Ika benayu. The nafkamina is this. What happens if the din is because aliyah l'regel implies 2 good feet? Yeah, you're walking on your reglayim. That's what the pilgrimages in Yerushalayim were. Even if you went on an animal, it's called aliyah l'regel. So the din is that a chiger, somebody who's limping, somebody who cannot walk under their own power, such a person is pater from Dailas Riyah and the chagiga. Right? So let's say you got healed. You had a high ankle sprain, whatever, and your mamish couldn't walk the first day of Yontif, but by the second day of Yontif, you were good. You were walking like a normal person without a limp. Yeah? So if you hold only the first day is the mitzvah and everything else is a tashlumin for the first day, so if you were pater at the time of the chiyuv, then the chiyuv doesn't come to you. There's nothing to make up for. Right? You begin to hear the similarity to what we're talking about over here in Tzvi Omer? Okay? Masha'enkein, if you hold that every day is its own chiyuv, so once, as long as your foot healed before the yontif was over, so you were mechuyev b'zman hachiyuv. It was incumbent upon you to do the mitzvah at a time when it's incumbent to do the mitzvah. Okay, so let's see where he goes with this. He says, the same way we're saying, if you hold, that when you miss a day, you blew it, right? And even the din of counting sphere by day, if you missed a night, is a makeup for the night. The real time to do it was at night, right? So then you could say, listen, if I wasn't mechuyev at the time of chiyuv, I'm off the hook for the rest of the time. The same way as if I wasn't mechuyev, if I was limping the first day of Yontif, I don't have to bring a makeup carbon, an El Sriya, and a Chagiga the rest of Yontif. Right? But it's not that way. You see that a person could skip a whole day, and each day is its own chiyuv, like the other mandam. The mandam who says that chiyuv in the spashet, that a guy was limping and then he got healed, that such a guy could and should bring the karma chagiga. Right? Other places where we also know, if you were pater from tefillah at the zman of a certain tefillah, or if you're pater from Havdalah at a zman of Havdalah, even if later you became the kind of person who's mechuyev, You don't have to make it up already. If you're part of Bisman HaChiyav, then there's no makeup. He didn't say the Mainim Kol Yisrael, Kach HaMitzvah. De'en Yom Echad Tolei B'Chaver. One day does not depend upon another. If it was because of Hashlama, you would have to say, if you skip the day, you would have to say today is the 5th day of the Omer. Oh, and by the way, yesterday was the 4th. Nobody holds like that. The Rishonim that say you can skip the day and move on, hold you should move on. Okay, the Yud Beis, I'm not going to look at the footnote right now. The Chinuch himself says something different. Yeah? According to the Shita, if you forgot by night and you counted by day, it's a new chiyuv. It's not a makeup for what you should have done last night. It's a new chiyuv. The day has its own chiyuv too. Let's say a shaita, cheres shaita v'katan, a part from kol mitzvahs. So insanity, as we know from our contemporary courts, can be temporary. You can lose your mind, you can regain your mind. What's the din lagabi a mitzvah? The Seder starts, and they're calling the men from Bellevue. They're going to take you away in a straitjacket. You're babbling, you're incoherent. So you're parted from eating the matzah. All right, but let's say something happens, and Baruch Hashem, you calm down. They call off the people from the loony bin. So then the din is, as long as it's still the Zman Chiyuv, you have to eat. It's not shot you're making up for the Kazayas matzah you missed. You didn't miss it. The Zman Chiyuv is right now. It's not a makeup for what you should have done earlier. Who I didn't count, is that Pashut. That's Pashut. Ulashit is a Rishonim. According to those Rishonim, the Sri Yehudim, loy money yom echad if tzedad minyan, that if you did miss one day, then you lost all minyan. V'atam k'mashikaz v'rab mechaber. The Haim Mitzva Achas, it's one mitzvah. Mechiv shalom money yom echad. Batal mimanu achashben, the cheshben is over. It's all one long mitzvah. Near it seems. Near gam kem b'pshitas. The enchiluk bein im loy money sheshach hezed. The first thing that he said, the first halach he said, makes no difference. Accident, on purpose, or because you were a cotton or an eved in the middle. That's also pashut. However, listen to this beautiful chakira. Turn to page Tov Samaches at the top. What I do have a suffix is like this. Not so pashut. Before I said it was pashut, that if you were cotton and you were in a zgadol, or you were an eved and you were in a shtachrer, and it's a middle, what's the point of counting the last 15, 16, 20, 30, 48 days of Sfira if I don't have the whole mitzvah? The mitzvah is the entire minyan, and I don't have that, so that's it. I'm off the hook. He wants to know like this. Let's say, while you were a cotton, and while you were an eved, you were counting. The eved was counting as an animate mitzvah. It was voluntary. There are women who count even though they're not mechuyev. Forget the Magen Avram now for a minute. It says they were makabel upon themselves. They became balei chiyuv. Okay, most poskim and the Minchat himself says he doesn't understand. We're saying it's a davar kodesh. Okay, but we know that there are women who count svira even though they're potter. Yeah, it's not as radical a thing to do as to put on talis and tefillin for a woman. You know? Count Sfira. You're potter, but you count. Yeah, fine. It's a wonderful thing to do. That's what we call an Eina Mitzvah V'Yaisa. Right? It's not as much schar as a Mitzvah V'Yaisa, but it's a Mitzvah V'Yaisa. So an Eved Knaini, who has the same level of chiyuv as a Jewish woman, could do the same thing. A kid, you're mechanech him, especially such an old kid. He's holding mamish balt by the bar mitzvah. Bar mitzvah's coming up before Shavuos. Yeah? I'm not going to have him sell Sfira Omer during Sfira. Yeah? So the Eved does it al tzeinim mitzvah v'yaisa. The cotton does it al chinuch. So they counted. So they had some kind of a count. It wasn't a count of a bar chiyuva, right? But here you can't say that there are holes and there are gaps. Even according to those Rishonim that say that if you forgot a day, or if you premeditatedly skipped a day, yeah, that you can no longer count. Yeah, and if you would make a birchas mitzvah on it now, it would be a bracha levatala, right? Why? Because the whole thing in its entirety is one mitzvah. But what about an Eved who did count? What about a cotton who did count? So they don't have the count of mitzvah in its entirety, but they have the count in its entirety. They were doing some kind of a count. So what's the din by them now? If it ever becomes nishtachar in middle of Sfira, if a cotton becomes nisgadol, gets his bar mitzvah in middle of Sfira, right? What's the din with them? Is it a mitzvah on them, or is it not a mitzvah on them? Is it a chiyuv on them to continue counting, or not? Yeah? What would be the nafkamina if it is a chiyuv or not? I mean, besides just knowing in the theoretics and the lumdus of it, there are two practical differences we'll see in a minute. Ach, ani mesupik l'shita zu. In a cotton, afal pi she'en a chayiv, mikol mokum kederach haktanim. Let's say he counted like the katanim from a yingelach do. That counts for his omer. Oyeved, monakayim she'en shtachar gamken. He counted. He was doing it as an eidem mitzvah. He was shaylas mitzvah say shazman grama kumvu mecham mekamas v'shas. It's not that a woman or an eved is not allowed to do those mitzvahs. They're not mechayiv to do the mitzvahs. That wants to skip tefillin one day, let him skip tefillin one day. We're not going to say you're not allowed to put on tefillin. Uve'emtzen is gadol ha-cotton, v'nishtachar eved, in the middle of Sfira, the cotton became a gadol and the eved became a free man. Is there a chiyuv d'arayah, again, assuming that Tzrius Omer is a mitzvah saseh d'arayah, so for any of us, b'zman hazeh, that we don't have a carbon Omer, which seems to be the Rambam Shita, that was one of the shtiklach of the Milchus Chinuch I skipped. Okay, is there a mitzvah saseh min ha-Torah for such people to count Omer? Do we see the b'chiyuv p'tur Talia Milsa? It all depends on being chayiv to count, or potter from the count. V'kiyun shaya potter, since strictly speaking he didn't have to count, even if he did. Av shamana mikol makom kishim mitzvah achasi, since it's all one long unified mitzvah, mikadim lo'nis chayiv, and before he was not required to do it. Gam hata en chayiv min ha-Torah. So too now he's also not chayiv to do so min ha-Torah. Ve'en koif and oiseh limnais. So one nafkamina is practical halacha l'maisa difference. Okay, a big social issue in the modern state of Israel is kfiyah datit, religious coercion. But let's talk about the times when Klal Yisrael, I should say when Malchus Yisrael was a theocracy. Okay, the country was run al pi din ha-Torah. It was done. It was a one-state religion called Judaism, a constitutional monarchy. The constitution being the Torah. And the judiciary, the executive, all the branches of the government were there to enforce the Torah. Says a din, the Sanhedrin of Bezdin is kaif on mitzvah asay. They can force people to do mitzvah asay. Yeah? You don't want to give tzedakah that's required of you, they can put a lien on your property, like a bank with a mortgage. And they can physically beat you to do mitzvahs. Right? So let's say the Eved was counting, and then he becomes a free man. Says, oh, I was counting when I was a slave. I used to like to imitate my owner. Now that I'm a free man, now I'm calling my own shots. I'm not doing it. I'm not counting tonight. You are too doing it tonight. You're mechuyev to do it. We're going to force you to do it. However, whatever the means of coercion are, that's one nafkamina. Another nafkamina that he's not saying over here is, do you make a bracha on it? Yeah. A guy could have terrible remorse. I forgot to count the fourth day of Sfira. The whole 24 hours, not at night, not by day. Now it's shkia, now it's tzais. Oh, now I remember. Yeah? I want to count. You can count. Nobody's going to shoot you if you count. It's not a mitzvah, it's not a mitzvah. Maybe some Rishonim it all is a mitzvah. But don't you dare make a bracha. It's a bracha l'vatala. According to the way we paskin, yeah, you're not doing a mitzvah. So to make a mitzvah, it's like making a bracha l'aniach tefillin on an apostle of pair tefillin. Right? That would be another nafkamina. If you hold that the count that they did, shaloi kabar chiyuva, the count they did als volunteerism, als eine mitzvah v'yaisa, or the count that they did als chinuch of a cotton, yeah, that can't be part of the unified mitzvah of a 49-day, 7-week count, right? So here's another nafkamina. Not only Bezdin would not force them to complete the count, but if they want to complete the count, they cannot do so with a bracha. Right? I'm thinking that's consistent. What? Well, you don't think so? You think you could still make a bracha, no matter what?
I mean, even if it's not the with the rice, but what can he make the rabbanim? I mean, he made the brachas all the way.
Right.
Since he was a cotton also, he had no problems with it, right? So why can't he keep?
Actually, The cotton was making the brachas all the way through, yeah, because of chinuch. It's chinuch. If the eved was making the brachas all the way through, I'm not really sure. I'll tell you why. Can women make brachas on mitzvah seishel man grama? Yes, right. But that's if they know they're going to fulfill the mitzvah. I mean, I think a lot of the poskim that say that women shouldn't sell spheres because of foregone conclusion they're going to forget at some point. Right? If a person would know l'chatchila the first day, that at some point I'm going to forget, so you don't make brachas for the first minute. It's a catch-22 over here, right? If he's going to say that it's not the mitzvah, so certainly after the nishtachar, they can't make the bracha. Yeah? So then I would say to the Eved, so from the beginning you shouldn't be making a bracha either. You don't have a din of chinuch. You want to count on saying mitzvah, you can count. But you're never going to, even if you'll be in the nishtachar this year, before Shavuos, right? You still won't be able to make a bracha. I don't think you can make the bracha now either. Maybe.
But what's the having that should be quite for him?
What?
I mean, stuff because it's not tamimus, right? He's missing the count.
No, he wants to be mitzvah like this.
Yeah.
He's contrasting two different scenarios. Okay, you could have an eved, right, who didn't count. Why should I count? I'm part from counting, so I didn't count. Okay, so such a guy is zicher if he's nishtachar before Shavuos, yeah, he can't count. You agree that would be a bracha levatala? Okay, fine, because it's all one big mitzvah and he didn't have it. He's talking about if the eved did count, starting from the second Saturday, from the second night of Pesach. He did count. He counted. I'll say mitzvah v'yoseh. So can you say that the person really doesn't have the whole count? What he's lacking is a count of a bar chiyuva. Is that enough? That's his chakira. But if you hold that's still called that you counted all 49 days, so now once you became a bar chiyuva, now it can be kai for you. Why not? If you overhear, if a court officer overhears a guy saying, you know something, I'm feeling ornery tonight, I have a gripe under Rabbi Shalom, I'm skipping tonight's Svira. No, you're not. We'll do whatever we have to do to make it sell Svira tonight. Right? So there's a kviyah to fulfill mitzvah I say. So if his count, bizman avdusai, yeah, is admissible in the I don't want to use the word tamimus because but in the hashlama of the fact that it's all one unified mitzvah, if that's admissible, so now once you become a chuyev in all mitzvahs eishas ban grama, now we could be kai for you. Why not? We could be kai for you on Tefillin tomorrow. We could be kai for you on Krishna tomorrow. Why shouldn't we be kai for you on Sfira tonight? That's what he's saying. That's his chakira. Aydilma. Kivin shemana afshay beptur mikol malkol lebat lacheshmal kolpanim v'chay mikan labo. The cheshmal is still not nullified, and he's mechuyev going forward. Which means we would be kaifim. The first part I read was en kaifim. This would be kaifim. All right, a lot of us make early Shabbos. This is a hafladik of Mordechai over here. Umatzinu b'Mordechai b'Megillah. Heavy stars are ben atuvim avinu uvu gam kumag avram simaresh tamazayin. The mechuyev midrabanan mitzi achayev min atayra. Somebody who's mechuyev in something midrabanan can be mitzi another person. Excuse me, who's chayev min atayra. We know kol a potter min adavar any mitzi achayev midei chavasei. If you yourself are potter from something legamrei, yeah, you can't be mitzi others. But the Mordechai is machadish that if you are mechuyev in something midrabanan and others are mechuyev midaraisa, you can be mitzi them. And what's his chiddush? Minei ubei, from the person himself. It's unbelievable what he says. The yaitza b'kiddush hayayim meplaga minchul l'mayla. Okay. Early Shabbos. Early Shabbos is predicated on Rabbi Shita that night begins a plaga mincha. So mincha must be davened before plaga mincha, and Ma'ariv could begin a moment after plaga mincha. Right? Nevertheless, it's a nebulous halacha. It's not such a pashut halacha. It's something that you can do. David Kamara of it. However, the fact of the matter is that there are Rishonim that hold, and this is what the Mordechai is predicating this Chiddush din of his on. There are Rishonim that hold that the mitzvah of Taisa Shabbos being the Araisa is only at the end of Shabbos. Right? If I hold the Mikra, then I can make Havdalah after 48 minutes. Right? But I wait until 72 minutes to do Malacha, to say Havdalah. Yeah? So that's the din of Taisa Shabbos Midaraisa. But if I bring in Shabbos early, it's only Shabbos Midarabbanan. It's not Shabbos. Now, did you ever hear of anyone that klap ice in shul when people go home from early Shabbos minyan, repeat Krishma? Right? You ever hear anyone say, and repeat Kiddush? I know the whole taklit, the whole reason why you came to make an early Shabbos is you be able to make Kiddush right now when you go home. You're going to sing Shalom Aleichem, you're going to sing Eshes Chayil, you're going to make Kiddush. Come on. I'm going to say, and by the way, after Nacht, repeat Kiddush. You ever heard such a thing? Of course not. Right? So, the Chiyuv of Kiddush is Shabbos. Zachrei al Yain. It's the day of Shabbos. It's the din of Shabbos. It's Machayev Kiddush. Yeah? Zok to Mordechai. The same way, in the same person, a person could be Yaitze his Chiyuv of Kiddush D'Oraisa with a Kiyum of his Chiyuv of Kiddush M'Rabbanan. Because this is making Kiddush M'Bayid Yaim after Plag HaMincha, that's a din D'Rabbanan. Yeah? So the same way the person could be Maitzi himself on his Chiyuv D'Oraisa by fulfilling his Chiyuv D'Rabbanan, so another person, Reuven, can be Maitzi Shimon. If Reuven is only Mechuyev and something D'Rabbanan, he can be Maitzi Shimon. Okay? So, was will mit dem? Im Kain, Kamari Yaitz B'Kiddush Shabbos Man D'Rabbanan, the same way that the Mordechai says, you Yaitz on Kiddush, the rights of Shabbos, if you made it as Man D'Rabbanan, Im Kain B'Kotnish in his Gadol, Dal Kolpam Higil L'Chinuch Kaidem, B'Vaday Mayel Az Hazman Shemechuyim D'Rabbanan Liyas Chayav Achach Ben HaTorah Ve'en HaChesh B'Batel. I'm saying that if a cotton was scrupulous about counting, Chinuch is a Chiyuv D'Rabbanan, right? So if he was doing a count D'Rabbanan, that's definitely admissible and attachable to the count D'Oraisa, and therefore when he became Bar Mitzvah Middle Sphira, he would have to complete Sphira. As it could be Kaifa, there's no Shal of Brachal of Atala when he makes a Bracha on Sphira, as I said. Now, to me, this blew my mind, this Milchas Chinuch. Because when I learned the Chakira in the first place, I said, Avada, the Eved, has a leg up on the cotton. Yeah? The Eved is doing a mitzvah d'oraisa, just as an animal mitzvah d'oraisa. But he's a bardas, he's a gadol, it's a full shtendig, it's a complete mitzvah. And he's being mitzaded more than the cotton who was doing Sphira Midrabanan. Now, the footnotes say that this goes to another Chakira in the Paiskim, is Chinuch. Yeah, it's a din d'Rabbanan, but is it a din d'Rabbanan on the father? Or once the kid starts becoming a mufla sabach lishi, starts getting his own intelligence, a full-fledged bardas, or he'd be mechuyim d'oraisa, the full-fledged bardas is a bar mitzvah, right? But at a certain point, Chinuch becomes incumbent on the child himself and on his parents. So the footnotes over here say that the Minchas Chinuch svara only makes sense if you hold that the cotton himself is mechuyev in Chinuch. If it's only a mitzvah av al ben, then what he's saying makes no sense. It's not pshat that the kid was doing a sphira midrabanan up until his bar mitzvah. He was doing whatever. He was helping his father be yaitz his chiyuv d'Rabbanan. Okay, that's it for the first year tonight. We'll pick up the next year in 5 minutes.